Yeadon, what's up, man? Dude, I love how you like literally just take the gum out of your mouth, like literally right before the countdown is over. That was perfect.
Well, it's like, Yaden, take the gum out of your mouth before you go on camera. I'm like, okay, yes.
Yeah. They always seem to know better. So hey, let's actually start there. Let's start with your marriage. Let's start with family. Uh, Wife. How many kids we got nowadays?
So let's see. Been married coming up on 18 years
Yeah.
in December. And we have 4 kids, 15, 13, 11, just turned 11 last week. It's on is it called Patriot Day? It's on 9/11. He was born on 9/11. And then our youngest is 8.
Yeah, I was smiling because I know the answers to these questions, and a lot of people, when they hear like 4 kids, they're like, what is wrong with you?" So
Like,
what's
what? Like,
and
you know what causes that, right? Like, yes, I do. And I try and practice it every chance I get.
I agree. They're like I when I hear that, they're like, you know what causes that? I'm like, yeah, hot wife, and I have one, so like it does happen. So and so do you. So but
Exactly
let's
right.
actually start with let's start with you growing up. You had I think you had a childhood that was very different from most at the same time, but I also think there were levers that were pulled from, I think, a lot of people our generation, meaning like the fathers of today, how we were raised growing up, and just some of the levers that were pulled, like when you and I were kind of going back and forth between some of the things that you experienced growing up. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. Oh, yeah, look at that, me too. Oh yeah, me too. And me too. It didn't really work out so well. In fact, it almost gave you this sense of not even really wanting to be around, quite frankly. But I want you to talk through that, just some things that you experienced growing up.
Growing up, I was born at an early age. And then, no,
I haven't
so,
heard that before. I'm going to use that.
oh, you haven't heard that one before? Born at an
I
early
haven't.
age. And so growing up, my parents homeschooled us. And homeschooling in the late 80s started in third grade. We started homeschooling back when homeschooling was barely legal. Barely legal. In fact, when we moved home to South Carolina, where my dad was born, homeschooling had only become legal a few years before we moved home. My mom legit would not let us go outside before 3 o'clock in the afternoon because she didn't want anybody, calling CPS or child welfare. So it was like, hey, these kids look like they're skipping schools. And I would have questions all the time going out, like, why aren't you in school? And it was like, I'm homeschooled. And they'd be like, what's that? Is that legal? And have to explain it constantly growing up. Now everybody knows somebody who's homeschooled,
Oh
and for
yeah.
that you're welcome. Us pioneers paved the way, so nobody asks you if that's legal anymore. And homeschooling, I loved being homeschooled, being able to
Really?
focus on uh, academic studies that I was interested in, and not have to wait for anybody else in the class to catch up with where I was. So I love homeschool. We actually homeschool our 4 kids now. We homeschool our kids now. But growing up, you were talking about like tools that we were given. I distinctly remember the the tools for life that I was given because of the circles that I was in for how to raise kids, how to be married, how to have a family. It was a very narrow interpretation. It's like this is the right way to do it. And if you're not doing it this way, then you're doing it wrong, right? And it's funny, the classic joke is the only experts in parenting are the ones who don't have kids.
Oh my God. That's great,
I was a
dude.
perfect
Yeah.
parent. I was a perfect parent for decades. And then we had our first kid. I'm like, oh crap. I do not know what the hell I'm doing.
Join the club.
Re- yeah, right? It's like, or thinking like, oh, I'm totally prepared for marriage and what it's going to be. And then I get married and like, oh, I didn't realize I had an anger problem until I got married. Like I didn't have this problem a year ago. It's like, well, yeah, because you didn't have to have a conversation about everything in life a year ago. If you were hot, you turned the air conditioner down. If you decided I want to go to McDonald's for lunch, you just got in the car and went to McDonald's.
Isn't
So the
isn't
tools that I
it
was given.
isn't a decision to have McDonald's actually twofold? In other words, I'm going to have McDonald's for lunch, and therefore by doing that, I'm going to decide to have diarrhea by 2.
My kids also, my kids are like, oh, we don't want to go to McDonald's. I'm like, guys, y'all have never been to McDonald's. Why does everybody hate McDonald's so much in my family and you've never been? Like, you guys don't know what McDonald's fries are like. They're really good. Right? Like, I'm just saying, getting one of those apple pies right out of the heater, like it's $1.30. Like that's one of the ways you know Jesus loves you, if I'm being honest. Like, but right, it's like having
Yeah.
those conversations after marriage about relationship, child raising. I realized, actually, I didn't realize quickly that the tools that I had in my tool belt just didn't work. The idea of being an authoritarian, right, looking back, I see now, like I was going to be an authoritarian, disciplinarian, my way or the highway, my house, my rules, all that stuff is like, why do I have to do that? Because I said so, because I'm your dad and that's what I said. Which, and I'm not knocking my parents. It was like, that was kind of the culture that it was back in the 80s and 90s. It's just, that it was the way that things worked. And the tools that I internalized from growing up were very authoritarian, disciplinarian, right? Like crime and punishment, reward and punishment, so that I could get my kids to basically not be kids, just like behave, shut up, don't bother me, let me do my work. You mind your own kid business over there and don't interfere with what I'm trying to do as an adult. Man, that's frustrating.
Is that the way you were raised?
I don't want to say all that because I don't want to paint my parents in such a horrible light. But that's what I latched onto from the curriculum with the homeschooling program we were a part of. It's like I just latched on. It's like, oh, this is the right way to live. To, stay under authority, guide my kids in what they're supposed to be doing, punishment when they stray from the path, or correction and discipline when they stray from the path to get them back on the path, but focused on staying on the right path, both with marriage and with kids, and having this like clear channel of authority where I, as the dad, was the ultimate authority on everything in the family. That's kind of the
What's
the
funny
the,
is I
the
think,
spiritual culture that I was raised in.
do you think that, so like the way you parent now, I'm curious. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm really curious. Would you say that you have a mixture, like a parenting style that's mixed with authoritative and authoritarian?
Actually, no,
Really? Okay, tell me
I,
more.
I, I would not. I would not. I'll give you an example. So, right, I think we're about the same age, Larry. So I just turned 43. I know we're in that same window, right? If you had come home one day when you're 14 and said, "Dad, I'm going to get my ears pierced," how would that have gone? How would that conversation have gone?
I can tell you exactly how it went, even, right? Because I remember being 16 while I was 15. And when I grew up and when you and I grew up, I think having an earring was way more popular. Like it was like, kind of like, but it wasn't like it was like a stud, right? And like I
Yeah,
remember like that was like a big thing back then. I remember being 15 and I'm like, hey mom, like I really want to get like an earring. And she's like, and my grandfather even, who is literally the greatest freaking mentor from a father figure on earth, but still like he came from the old school, right? And he told me, and I asked my mom in front of my grandpa, and my mom was like, over my dead body, and my grandpa said, yeah, you can get it. I was like, but when I see you, I'm gonna rip it right out of your ear. So like that. And I'll never forget it, dude. It took me about a year, but I came home with one. I didn't even ask. I just came home with it. I figure I'm 16. Like I can make my own decisions. I can make this decision at this store where I'm getting this earring.
right.
I'm old enough. I don't need my parents in here. I came home with it, and dude, my mom about lost her mind. And but yeah, that it didn't really fly in my house. It was very
Yeah.
authoritative when it came to
It was
that.
not a thing that, and also I had no desire to get an earring, by the way.
Right.
But my son, who's 15, last year when he was 14, he's like, Dad, I want to get my ears pierced. And all of that, like what you just said, that is my background too. Like my parents have been like, yeah, nope, not while you live at home. You can do that on your own money, on your own dime when you pay your own bills. So my 14-year-old son's like, Dad, I want to get my ears pierced. And I'm like, whew, I need a minute just to process this because this is way outside of my comfort zone at this moment in time. And I thought about it, and he has his ears pierced. The spoiler alert, he has his ears pierced. He got his ears pierced. And I was like, you know what? This is a decision that you legitimately can make at 14. And he asked me honestly, like, Dad, what do you honestly think about this? And I said, honestly, William, I don't know. This is very scary because I know that from when I was your age, people would look at me if I had earrings and they would instantly make judgments. And I know that some people are probably going to make a judgment on you just by seeing that you have earrings. And that makes me a little bit scared for you in those situations because they won't get a chance to really know who you are because they've already made a judgment based on your appearance. Now, I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure you're okay with that. And also, getting your ears pierced, that is a reversible decision. That's not a one-way street. If you show up like, Dad, I'm going to get a face tattoo. I was like, hold up, dude. Like that is like, well, you can get tattoos removed. It's way more painful to get a tattoo removed than to get it put on.
100%. 100%.
With the earrings, it's like, this is not a permanent decision that my teenager is making. He is kind of flexing his grown-up decision-making skills. And if he decides a year from now that was a mistake, then okay, we just take him out. The ears are back to where they were. If he realizes like, oh, I made the right decision, then I haven't damaged my relationship with him by saying that's a terrible idea, you're going to regret it, and I don't think you should do it. He got his ears pierced and everything is fine, right? Like the world didn't end. Like was in the back of my head fearful that it would. So all that to say, like, I don't think authoritarianism really is part of, not anymore. It's been a journey. My wife has just been so patient and gracious with me along this way to let me fail as a parent and give me space to grow in my own time instead of like, hey, here's this level of parenting and you have to operate here or you're out. Like it's been at every level of growth. It's like, okay, right. You only explode in anger once a week now instead of 2 weeks, instead of twice a week, or like you haven't had a angry episode in a month. Just this regular process of growth to the point now where I really see my children not so much as children, not as an extension of me, but as this really is an individual person that's living his own life, living her own life. And I want them to be able to make bad decisions that are reversible. If I told him like, dude, if I thought this was a permanent decision and it was a bad decision, I would be straight up with you. He's like, I think this is a mistake and I don't think you should do it. I would have been straight up with him. But it wasn't that case. And I think a lot of the instances as a parent are the stakes are not as high as we think they are as a parent. The stakes are much less like, oh, if getting earrings was a mistake, he's smart. He'll figure it out. If earrings are not a mistake, then he has earrings. And I still have an amazing relationship with my son. So authoritarian, not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah,
unless it's time to pick up their room. Okay. When it's time to pick up the room, it's like, hey, we're cleaning the house on Friday, so get everything up off the floor of your room. Like, sorry guys, Friday is cleaning day. You have to get the Legos picked up off the floor.
So I think that there's a good mixture of both here, right? So same as you, before I started doing this work, I always thought it's my way or the highway. Like it was so authoritative. Like, you do as I tell you to do, no questions, no nothing. No. And I think when you do, like, listen, I'm not blind to the fact that you have to do that sometimes, right? I like to follow the 80-20 rule when it comes to that. Like, I want, an authoritarian, like, if I'm going to tell my kids what to do and when to do it, it's going to be 20% of the time,
Right.
right? The other 80% of the time, I really filter it through certain decisions of like, hey, when it comes down to it, what really happens as our kids get older is we lose more control, but we can actually enhance the influence, right?
Exactly right.
But that's not by pampering them, and that's not by bribing them, and that's not by giving them everything that they possibly want. And it's not like, but without connection, we have no influence. So it's all about connection. Therefore, I have greater influence as they get older. But I totally agree. So for this weekend, my kids, we've got these, I don't know about you, 4 kids, but we went and invested in these custom built cubbies in like the entryway of our garage, right? So you can hang
And I'm
all your
sure they
stuff.
always put everything you're supposed to in the cubbies.
Only once every 3 months, right? So
When
my
they've been given
kids,
direct instruction, your shoes do not go on the floor.
right?
Like the
So
cubby is not even a foot away.
I know, right? So we built these cubbies. Like, I think it's 18 inches away from the wall, right? So we lost 18 inches from the wall, right? And got this tiny, like, little pathway from the garage and into but it used to be just a stack and an obstacle course of all their bags and their football stuff and their cleats and their backpacks and books and all this other stuff. That was like a catch-all. It was a mad chaos. Well, we definitely learned that what isn't really seen isn't really a top of mind. So whatever's in the cubby, even if you open up the door and it explodes all over you, like, you have no idea. So like we got to the point where, like, guys, like, we now actually have less space to deal with, and it's just as much, if not more, crap on the floor, and it's more of an obstacle course than it was before. But yet we have these cubbies that you can use, and they're not used. But you have to open them up to see what's in it. So we open it up. I think a dead body actually fell out at one point. Like, it was just like, so we used, the authoritarian. We're like, guys, no later than this Friday, your cubbies are cleaned out, period. And we start using them again, because this can't happen. Like, somebody's going to trip and kill themselves over all this gear that we have here. So I think that there are times, but we try to use the more collaborative approach for most things, because quite frankly, our kids do cooperate really, really well.
Yeah.
But there are some times where you got to pull that lever of like, hey, this is what we're doing.
This is the way we will do this from here on out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely have to. There are definitely moments like that where it's like, look, this is not optional, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do. The way I would say to take the authoritarian piece out, right? Just in my head, I'm thinking like the authoritarian aspect would be like, the first time they don't, an authoritarian is going to come down like a sledgehammer. Like, I told you, and now I'm just going to throw all your shit in the trash. And now you just like, done. The non-authoritarian is like, hey, it's the idea of remembering that, how many times do I have to be told how to do something before it really ingrains in my head? So like, oh yeah, I don't have to think about this anymore. And for kids, I'm reading this great book called Self-Reg. It's like how to help your kids and you like process emotion. And so far, the crux of the book is like, it takes so much energy just for children's brains to process the world, that there's very little left most of the time to process the emotional chaos that's going on, or to remember instructions, right? Like, nobody is ever surprised when dad leaves to go somewhere, and then 3 minutes later I pull back in the driveway because, like, oops, I forgot my wallet, right?
I do that all the time.
And we give ourselves so much grace internally for that, because like, dude, I got a lot going on. But then with kids, I think we make the mistake of assuming that they can process more than they can. Like, guys, how many times do I have to tell you to pick your stuff up and put it away when you get home? When they just got a bad grade and they're scared that mom and dad are going to find out, or somebody said something mean to them at school and they're like, man, my best friend hates me, whatever it is. They're dealing with all the chaos of growing up, and we come down hard because they forgot to do something that we asked them to do. In that, like, hey, this needs to happen every single time. Like my kids, morning chores, unload the dishwasher. Again, they don't even have to unload the whole thing. It's like one kid unloads the top, one kid unloads the bottom. How many times a week out of 7 days do you think I have to remind my kids to unload the dishwasher? 7 out of 7. And even though it's a hard line, it's like, this is your chore. You have to do this. There's not the authoritarian drive behind it of, if you don't, you will be in major trouble. It's more of, hey, life is hard. I get it. It's complicated. I forget stuff all the time. Looks like you haven't gotten your chore done yet. What's your game plan for getting that done? Like, oh, right, I'm going to go do it right now. Or like, after I finish Minecraft. No, not after you finish Minecraft. We're going to pause. Minecraft we do after your whole chore list is done. So stop, get this done, and then go back. So that 20% of the time, even though that is a hard line, like this is how it is done, it's still not an authoritarian way. It's in that collaborative way, influence way, because that, like, we talk about this all the time in the Dad Edge, creating that safe psychological space for kids. And an angry dad, I don't want to say an angry dad because it's okay to get angry, but an out of control angry dad, oh my gosh, that is one of the scariest things in the world.
It is, because I think the kids don't even focus on whatever it is we're trying to tell them when we're out of control. All they know is like, holy crap, dad's out of control. I think it's okay to get angry. I really do, because our kids need to see a human being go through a range of emotion, right? But I also think we have an opportunity to show them what controlled anger and frustration really looks like and how you can still remain calm. Like there are times where I'll talk to my kids, it was about the cubby thing. I'd asked them to do it and they didn't do it. And instead of yelling like I really wanted to, because like I saw there was football turf everywhere, there were cleats everywhere, there was mud. I was about ready to lose my mind, right? Because I've been asking them to do this. And instead I went to them and I said, hey guys, and they were all like this was the day after homecoming this past weekend on a Sunday. They were all tired. They were up late. And I go, hey guys, what is the one thing that we needed to do this week that was really important to make sure that we were highly organized for our week upcoming? Backpacks and shoes and gear and all that. And they were like, clean out the cubbies. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And why haven't we done that? And they're like, oh, this. And I was like, and basically what happened is my kids, I thought it was a really cool response. They're like, we don't have an excuse. No excuses. We didn't do it. We're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, awesome. So it's like, I didn't have to like blow up, right? I posed a question of like, what was your role here? What was your job here, right? And did we do it? And if not, why not? And that's what I wanted to hear was no excuses. I didn't want to hear, oh, we had homecoming, oh, we had the football game, oh, we had this. Yeah, well, we got a lot of stuff going on, but there's no excuses.
We always have a lot of stuff going on.
We do, but that's what I want to hear. I want to hear ownership, right? If I can hear ownership and I'm going to go do it, my anger just completely subsides. But I really want you, before you hit upon, business and some of the things you've learned in Dad Edge, I really want you to talk about this guilt factor. I was raised with it, right? Guilt and shame were massive motivators for me to take action on something. Yeah. And it sounds like, I think collectively for our generation, we dealt with that. But I think we're seeing a lot of men, you and I both included in this, where it's like, I really don't want to pull that lever because quite frankly, it's not effective. And that one word that we talked about, it's disconnecting. It's not connecting. And if I want to have influence over my kids, we need to be connected. So I'm not going to use that guilt factor. In fact, quite frankly, I think it's a really weak move. But I think most parents who use it, they don't know what else to use, or they've been raised with it themselves.
So 2 weeks ago, I turned 43. And so this is a story to hit on this guilt thing right on the nose. Turned 43. My wife and I, we was like, let's go out to eat for my birthday. Because once you hit 40, it's like you don't get to go to Stars and Strikes and have a bowling birthday party with all your friends and then play in the
Wait,
arcade anymore. I don't
what?
know why, because that's a lot of
Why?
fun. Laser
Yeah.
tag, arcade, bowling, pizza, like that's a blast. Why don't I get to do that at 43? It's just, oh, we go out to eat as a family. But we hadn't talked with any of the kids about it. None of the kids knew that that was the plan. So my 15-year-old son, he had plans to go play tennis with one of his friends because he's on the tennis team at the high school. And he has his restricted license, so he can drive himself there. And he does this on the regular basis, so he didn't know that he needed to check with anybody. And I come in after working in the office. I come back into the house after working in the office, and like everybody's having a meltdown. My 15-year-old son William is frustrated and angry because he'd canceled. And he was like, "Man, he was flooded with his emotions."
You make him sound like the Incredible Hulk, by the way.
Pretty close. And then I was like, it hurt. It's like, guys, this is my birthday, and it felt like nobody wants to hang out with me on my birthday. Nobody wants to celebrate that this is my birthday. Like, I celebrate all of y'all's birthday, and you can't just adjust your schedule a little bit. But instead of all of that, it was just like, like, man, it hurts. Your reaction, it hurts. Like, my feelings are hurt. I was honest about my feelings are hurt, but I didn't come down with like, I can't believe I can't believe this is how you're reacting. It wasn't that. It wasn't the guilt trip reaction. It was just like, I can see you're frustrated, and I'm hurting too because my feelings are hurt a little bit. And that was it. And then like an hour later, he sent me this text message, which is a testament to my growth in
I
with
can't
with the
wait.
work that we do in the Dad Edge.
Yeah.
And text message was, Dad, I'm sorry. I overreacted. Like, of course, having dinner with you on your birthday is way more important to me than playing tennis with my friend. I was caught off guard. I didn't know what this plan was, so I didn't know that I needed to tell anybody what my plans were because I just didn't know. And I was overwhelmed in the moment, I see that I overreacted, and I'm sorry. And I'm really looking forward to going out to eat with the family tonight.
How old is he? 25?
Dude, 25-year-olds aren't that savvy, right?
That's insane, man. So he was able to identify what
Yeah,
he was feeling,
what
number
he was
one,
feeling,
what the
and
miss was.
navigate
Yeah.
through it without any. Now, I think my wife might have said, "Hey, I think you might have hurt Dad's feelings," right? Which is fine. Which is fine to like, hey, I don't know if you realize you're a kind person, but that wasn't a kind thing that you did. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And he sent me that text message, and we had a great time. Went out to eat, had tacos. But 2 years ago, shoot, 1 year ago, I would have had this explosive reaction, and the guilt, fear, shame would have just dropped on him like a wet blanket. And shoot, I know what would have happened. Nothing. I would have spiraled down into my own emotions. I would feel guilty for my reaction. My son would have felt guilty for his reaction. Instead of, hey, this is a safe place to have your emotions. This is a safe place to experience your emotions, and I'm going to help you navigate through them, instead of making you feel guilty for having a pretty normal reaction to your schedule getting blown apart. That's sort
That's,
of taking the guilt out of the equation.
I love how you refer to it as a wet blanket because that's actually a very wet blanket move, in my opinion,
Yeah.
but it's a move that is common among parents, right? But it's insanely disconnecting, and quite frankly, it's really not effective. Like,
Yeah.
if anything, it pisses the other person off to the point where they're just going to try to right whatever it is that they're feeling, not take any ownership of it, and look at you and be like, that is your problem. Like,
Right.
you
Yeah,
look
it's
at how
your
you're
problem. Why
reacting.
didn't anybody
Yeah,
tell me this was the plan? It's
right.
like, because
Exactly.
as soon as you go on the defensive, you have to justify what you're feeling. And
Yep.
I don't want my kids to ever feel like they have to justify their emotions to me.
That's here's where I think this type of work, you've been doing life with us in the accelerator now for over 2 years. And I look at this work as going back to the theme of the best lessons in life are caught, not taught. And the work
Hmm.
that we do is bigger than us. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, would your kids still have a response like that? Would they be emotionally mature enough to own things like that had you not been the example for them, and they get to watch it? They're watching it, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And
listen,
I don't think so. I don't
yeah.
think they would.
I mean, I'll be really honest, and I'm not saying this to put myself in a good light of like, I do everything right. I do so much crap wrong. It's not even funny. Like, it's not even funny. I apologize all the time. I make
Mhm.
mistakes every single day. And there's very few things that I feel like I'm pretty good at. But one of them is ownership. One of them is I'm not going to point the finger at something that was completely and totally missed. Like, I will tell you, no excuses. This was all on me. This is what happened. And I'm sorry. And I love the fact that I think my boys are picking up on that. Like I said, my strengths are on the short list. my faults are pages, right?
It's easy to tell you what my strengths are. It's less than one hand. I don't even need five
Right.
fingers for that.
Exactly. But like, if you want to hear the weaknesses, it's more like War and Peace. But but I think that's where your son really learned this from, right?
Yeah.
And it's think about I think of it this way. What are we really trying to do? We're trying to raise fully functional, good human beings that are going to be an asset to society, right? And you think about somebody like that in the workplace, and you're like, who do I want to deal with? Someone who's completely self-aware and knows what's going on, and let me tell you, and a clear communicator? Or do you want to be like, oh, it was everybody else's fault? It was this, it was that, it was the
Hmm.
weather, it was the alarm, whatever, right? But the fact that he's learning these things and he's able to do it, in such a clear way. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Oh, I was
that's all.
shocked.
Yeah,
I was shocked. I mean, I teared up reading the message. I'm like, this is not. And I love my dad. I'm not bashing him, but it's like I did not have the awareness when I was 15. I just internalized everything like, oh, I'm not good enough. I screwed up and I got to do better. But there was nobody I could talk to about it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that was like a very common theme of our generation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I know you actually have to go pick up your son here in just a little bit, but I want to switch gears to your business. Now, I want you to explain to the men, what is it you do? I've actually have partnered with you on some of your deals as well. I love working with you. Number one, both from, you're one of my clients, and I'm one of yours. And I love this. I've learned actually so much from you and what you do. But I would love for you to share with the men what it is you do. But you also gave some breadcrumbs before we hit record of like, you've really been able to learn a lot of things in the community, either from us as facilitators. I know from the guys in the group that has completely and totally leveled up your business.
Hmm. So thank you for those very very kind words, Larry. The business that we're in commercial real estate. I and my partner and my cousin Jennings, we do multifamily apartment investing, where we raise money from private investors for the down payment. We buy apartments that have a problem that we know we can fix, whether it's operations, deferred maintenance, renovation, something that we can fix and push the value of the real estate significantly higher. And we've been doing that for 4 years, right? You've been in, I think you're on your second deal with us. The first deal went sideways. We didn't make as much money as we thought, but we didn't lose anybody money. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jesus. Second deal on track. It's performing the way we thought it would. That's the one aspect that we do, working with private investors to invest in Wall Street class investment, private investments that you just don't have access to talking with your Edward Jones guy. And as a result of doing that and trying to find deals, trying to find investors, this audience kind of organically grew on Facebook, right? Our company's called My First Million in Multifamily. You can find us on Facebook. We got like 26,000 people in the group. And from that audience, people started asking us for education materials. So we built out this whole education platform on how to buy apartment, right? It's a classic infomercial from 1993. Buy apartments with no money down, buy this course for 3 easy payments of $99.99,
Oh my
and
God.
you too can be a gazillionaire, right? That's sort of I joke, but that's kind of what it is. Like, how do you buy apartments? How do you analyze them? How do you raise capital? How do you find deals? How do you operate deals? And then from there, with the education stuff, we built out this whole mentoring program, which actually we modeled a lot off of the Dad Edge, being in this mentoring program. Because what I came up with this phrase a while ago, like, information in isolation ends in frustration. It's
I
not
like
enough
that.
just to have the information. It's not enough just to buy a course. You need to have a relationship with somebody or be in a community where you can ask questions, where you can talk about wins, where you can talk about missteps, setbacks, ask questions of stuff you don't understand. So my first million in multifamily, we have this deal room program where we mentor people in how to do this. With all the education stuff for the foundation, structured way to build relationships, how to find deals, how to find money, how to operate them. And we have, like, last year, I know 75 deals closed out of the deal room. And Jennings and I were only connected to 3 because of how we've designed it. It's like, teach a person how to fish instead of just give them a fish. We teach people how to build the team that they need, how to find the money they need, how to find the right time to deal, how to underwrite the deals. And with the Dad Edge, modeling some of the aspects off of the Dad Edge Accelerator online community, and just asking questions of people way more savvy about business than we are. I mean, literally, we doubled the business on our mentoring side in 2022.
Wow.
We doubled it. And we're still making adjustments. We're still refining the process. But now we know that what we have works. The X factor, right? Just like with the Dad Edge Alliance, like, what y'all have works. It's just a matter of the participant. That's the variable. If you plug in, if you show up, if you do the work, it will work. And I've seen the same thing with buying apartment complexes. If somebody shows up and does the work, it's not a matter of if they'll own apartment complex, it's when they will own
Man,
apartment complexes.
it seemed like such a big, audacious thing before we started working together. I was just like, apartment complexes. But then I got to learn it, and I got to learn how to do this. And as long as, like, so I really don't have, I don't have a deep desire to go and find deals, but I love working with people that are finding the deals,
Yeah.
right? And because of that, like, I've been able to partner with people like you and be partial owners in some of these deals, which has been really, really good. And it's been such a tremendous learning curve as well. Very cool stuff, man. I've heard you mention that before, but not that much detail of some of the things that you've grabbed from how we facilitate and how we do things, and then how you've incorporated that into what you guys are doing.
We have a 6-week intensive, right? I know you're familiar with that word
A little
because
bit.
we have intensives in the accelerator, where it's like, hey, you're with this group for X number of weeks and you're focused on your goals, and you have this accountability system. We have duplicated that in our program where we call it the deal sprint, where it's a 6-week push. You pick which call works for you, and you're on a smaller team of like 8, 12 people with a leader. It's like, hey, what are you focused on this week? What are the smallest actions you can be taking? What is the next right step to move fastest towards your goal? And being able to walk somebody through the steps that matter right now, right? Like, don't worry about setting up a slick website. You don't need that. You can get that later. What you need to be doing right now is calling the next person that you think wants to invest, or whatever the step is. And we have this 6-week intensive that cycles through every 2 months. It's just an ongoing thing in our program. And the accountability piece is just like with the Dad Edge Accelerator. That's where the rubber meets the road. Like, what are you actually going to be doing in the day-to-day, in the week-to-week, to move towards your goal? And we do that. We do that same thing in the deal room. Like, what are you doing to make progress?
There's really 2 things here that are really important to, thank you, success, right? And that is, number one, what is we ask this question all the time in the Dad Edge, what is the right next thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have a buffet of choices at all times. And let's just talk about it as you're starting a business and maybe even like real estate, right? You have a buffet of things to do and you're like, what's the right next thing? If someone can give you a suggestion on like, this is what, don't worry about the website, go do this instead. And then the accountability piece, which is 95% success rate. If you have a weekly cadence of checking in with someone on whatever that right next thing was, I have mine on Thursday with our facilitators, Jason, Jeff, and Jake, every Thursday, 6 a.m. But if you have a weekly touch point with other like-minded people of like, did you do the thing that you promised to do last week? Right. When you have to answer to people, you don't want to tell people you flaked
Right.
on it. So
You don't want to be the
people,
weakest link in the chain.
you do not. So I know you got to run because you have to go pick up your son. But for those who have heard your message and maybe they want to connect with you over something business related, or they want to hear more about real estate investing, or they just want to connect with you in general, what is the best way for them to do that?
Best way to connect is online. We're easy to find on Facebook. My First Million in Multifamily is our big free group. You can find me on Facebook. Shoot me a friend request, Yeadon Smith. There are not many of us on Facebook, so I'm easy to find. And we have a way, if you want to learn more about our mentoring program, it's myfirstmillioninmultifamily.com, where we talk about if you want to get on a phone call, like book a call through the website. Let's Jennings and I are the ones who handle inquiry, like exploratory calls. Like, you're not talking with a sales guy, you're not talking with a team out of Phoenix, out of New York. Whereas like Jennings and I individually talk with people about whether our mentoring program is a good fit, because we're looking for the right people that we can work with.
Oh, I love that, man. And yeah, you definitely, you got to be the right person, right? I definitely hear that. So gentlemen, all you have to do is head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday 125 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/125 for this show. We're going to have Yeadon's Facebook page in there. We're also going to have his website in there if you want to book a call with his team, or if you just want to connect with him in general. But Yeadon, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on today. Thanks for sharing the wisdom of how you grew up and how you've evolved, the way you go about marriage and parenting, being authoritative versus authoritarian, all these things that are so important to us, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Larry. I would not be here without the work that you've done. I'm so grateful. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. Gentlemen, go out and live legendary. Take care.